let's start. I have Professor Ina Kayser from IST University of Applied Science in Düsseldorf, Germany. I have Professor Francisco Villarroel. You know him already because he presented before, so he's
Thank you, Rosaria.
Now, everybody knows him. From the Guido Carli University in Rome. And we were supposed to have Ali Alkan from Infora, but as you know already from the Partner Award ceremony, he couldn't make it. So very nicely, Stefan Helfrich accepted to step in for him and fill in his role. So Stefan Helfrich, responsible for the KNIME Educators Alliance. Okay, so thank you, welcome, and thank you for accepting, to be here to answer the questions about upskilling experiences in data literacy, and maybe how to fish too. Okay, so let's do just a quick round of introductions. I know I already talked, I already said what you're doing, but of course there is much more than just the title. So if you want to say a few words about what your job is and what your current project is.
So do you want me to start? Okay. I'm head of studies for a Master of Business Transformation Management at IST University of Applied Sciences in Düsseldorf in Germany. But there's much more to my teaching than just that, because I teach in a lot of programs and mostly related anything that has to do with business information systems and statistics. And so I try to engage people into topics they typically don't like. And before I became a professor, I worked at Deloitte and did enterprise risk services there, and I worked for the Association of German Engineers and mostly managed projects around Industry 4.0. So a lot of data-driven endeavors for me. Prior to that, I did my degree in computer science and international management, and thank you for the invitation today.
Thank you.
So I'm currently a marketing professor in Guido Carli, and I've been working in LUIS for the last 3 years. I'm also the director of the Masters in Marketing program at LUIS, in which we are currently actually developing a new track in marketing analytics. Before joining LUIS, I was an assistant professor of marketing at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. I worked for 4 years there, and during the last 7 years, I've been using KNIME either for bachelor education in data science, mainly focused, I will say, on text analysis, also in master's courses and PhD courses or training for academics that they want to, know a low-code solution to do research in marketing. I mean, as I said earlier on my presentation, marketing is becoming really more and more quantitative. I believe it's the business discipline in which we have the best quality data nowadays, maybe with some privacy issues, but still is good quality data. That has been my let's say, experience on teaching.
Thank you. And Stefan, do you want to say 2 words?
Yes, certainly. So I joined KNIME about 5 years ago, actually. I'm now responsible for our academic program here at KNIME. Before that, I was an avid KNIME user. So I've been using it for, 10 years, started during my PhD, and also educated a lot of people about KNIME, how to do their data analysis, actually mostly in biology departments, so people without a classical programming background, but a lot of data to analyze.
Okay, thank you. So now that we have cleared this up, so when you build a curriculum in data science, which topics should be covered in a data science course? You talk about the things that the students don't want to hear. So which are the topics that they don't want to hear and should be in a course?
I think it differs greatly regarding which audience you talk to. Like, I have students in a master's degree that focuses on business transformation management, so they naturally want to focus on statistics and analytics, so this is fine. Much more challenging, and therefore more interesting in this context, are students that study other degree programs. For example, we have a huge program in communication management, tourism management, sport business management, all these kind of service-related industry programs. So those students don't naturally apply to university to come to my classes. So to me, it's not so much about what's in the curricula, but more how to engage students and to interest them for the topic. I guess you're all familiar with your courses at university that you had to attend but didn't want to attend. I think the hurdle for me is to, overcome that prejudice that my classes are not interesting. So finding a business case, showing results, and then explaining theoretical concepts such as machine learning, supervised learning, whatever, is the approach to go. So it's more about how to, wrap the curriculum as to what's inside the package.
I see. So to make it more appealing, so that they access what's needed for the future.
True.
Francisco?
I fully agree. I mean, that's a wonderful answer. I mean, that's big part of it. I mean, the question was about data science, right? What's a must topic to teach in data science? And I kind of try to reframe that question to my context, right? In business schools, what we have, as Ina said, is we have like departments, right? We have the marketing program, we have the management program, tourist program, sports program. And the challenge for program directors like me, I mean, I'm director of the marketing program, is, okay, how do we teach data science in a marketing program, right? And then the question is not actually what data science topics are a must overall, but what data science topics are a must for a marketing graduate, right? Or for a HR graduate or finance graduate. And in that context, I believe the key to me, the first really strong building block that we need, and all business schools probably need to make this switch, is help students to understand what's the value that data science can bring to their field, to marketing. Because without that step, I feel we are going to spend another 10 years trying to understand how data science can be useful or machine learning can be useful without much success. I mean, what we've seen in the last 10 years is intense, trials to use machine learning, get insights, but they don't work that well. And I believe it's because we don't have good introductory courses that are the value of data science for a field. So I think that's a must, beyond the technical abilities, beyond simplifying how you teach students or giving them more accessibility, really help them, okay, in branding, how do we know to understand the value of branding through data science? Okay, in search engine optimization, how do we do that? In content marketing, how do we value, let's say, data science for content? That to me is a must topic. There are many ways to approach it, but I think I will like to have a course that is just about value, the value of measurements from data science.
I actually have a question that I think many people share. So how young can the students be to start learning about data science? Because, we are going to have the bootcamp for teenagers. Everybody talks about starting to teach data science in primary school. So what do you think about that?
Can I go first?
Actually, I think there are some major changes going on in the German educational system, just from what I see. Like when I was in school, I learned about, my first interaction with statistics in my math class was probably in 11th grade. And now my son is in 6th grade, and he's already learning about the differences between mean and median, which is so important. I mean, if you look back into the pandemic and all the data we were confronted with, I mean, to us it's natural to be able to interpret these data, but just for a common person, it's probably not so natural. So to me, I think it's important to have a very holistic approach there to implement data literacy from the early ages on.
Yeah, I think that's a a big and important topic too. If we think that about data science, yeah, across fields and taking a generational perspective, I've heard and sometimes I see that there are differences, right? I mean, young graduates have a certain training that graduates from maybe 20 years ago that are at top management positions don't have, right? And how do they create a conversation that is fructiferous, that is prosperous, right there? And I think we need schools to do some work in there and kind of leveling the field, how we can make data science knowledge in different disciplines more common, kind of unify the language somehow on how we approach data science in different problems. So then in organizations, we reduce potential frictions that can happen between people who is entering, that comes with a, I don't know, with a deep learning, transformers mindset, and then they find, I don't know, what's happening there is just Excel spreadsheets that use, I don't know, frequency counts. You know, it's a, how do you handle those things? You know, they go beyond, I believe, the software technical aspects, but there is a lot of soft skills that we need to, I think, teach data science in data science for different disciplines. So
you think the younger generations are readier than the current generation?
Yeah, they are. I mean, for me, it's impressive. When I started teaching data science 7 years ago, and I was the first, and with KNIME, right? And I was seeing that it was a pressing need in the market. People wanted more data science, and what I see now is that students are much more prepared. You know, and companies are also expecting more. So it's yeah, it's definitely now. It's not anymore a plus; it's a must, I will say.
So now, queuing on what the companies expect. So which kind of data professionals are you educating for the future, for the job market?
I think on the one hand, we are educating people that are supposed to become a data scientist or a data analytic professional. But on the other hand, we're trying to build basic data science into the curriculum of every master degree that we have at the university, because I think it's very important to have at least some basic knowledge about data analytics. You cannot be a C-level manager or even below without being able to read, for example, the output that some analyst is giving you. So you need to have that basic knowledge about what data means and how to interpret it and how to get your strategies accordingly to the data. So I think, like you just said, it's not a plus anymore. It's a must-have for every manager. So every degree program that has something with management in the title is sort of adjusted to this new reality, and we try to, you know, at different levels, integrate that in all our degree programs.
Okay, so you're building managers for the future, or actually data?
We try to. Like I said in the beginning, they're not always very happy about this, but I hope that, like, really hope from the bottom of my heart that someday in the future, when they are, you know, in their first job and start to endeavor the challenges of everyday work, they will realize that it was for the better.
They will remember you and say, yeah, she was right. Okay.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that the professionals that we are training, they need to be able to ask good questions to data. You know, beyond the training in methods and being prepared to interpret or to like run analysis, but asking the right questions to data. I think that's a very hard skill to develop, and this is where KNIME to me comes very handy and like useful, because KNIME, and also I was talking I think with Roberto before, and the certification program, you know, the certification program that KNIME has, and currently this was the first year I implemented in my course. What can I say? It saved me hours of teaching how to use KNIME, because back then I was explaining students how to use it, day by day, and doing there. And if someone missed one part, they would get lost, and it was complicated. The certification program saved me hours of teaching mechanics to teach more about how to ask right questions to data, right? How to interpret data, right? So, and I think that's a difficult skill to develop that you do with practice, because if you in a course you focus only on technique, then my feeling is that you end a session and semester in which the students might know a lot of methods, but it hasn't trained abilities in applying, asking questions and solving questions with data.
So can you explain a bit more how the certification program helped? So you basically asked the students to take the L1 certification at the end of the course, and then for that they learn more, they apply themselves more.
No, I did it differently this year. So what I did is, back then I was teaching KNIME, like the first half of the semester, 6 weeks, like onboarding. Now I outsource all the onboarding to the certification program. So the first, I would say 6 weeks, I ask students to spend, I would say 4 hours a week in the certification program, like in the basic one, and they do their own onboarding at their speed on the first 4 weeks, 6 weeks of the course. I spend 1 or 2 hours of class just solving questions that they experience in the certification program. So things that maybe they didn't know, or that they have a questions beyond what the certification program does, that's what I cover in class, right? So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Stefan, if you want to comment, you have seen both worlds, the industry and the academia. So which kind of data professionals do we need for the future?
That's a very interesting question, and interestingly, an angle that we hadn't talked about. You both talked about degree programs. We talk about universities. Maybe now that the basic skills are moving more into schools and we're looking for data literate people, maybe there's also a space in between. We're recently involved in a project where KNIME was used during an apprenticeship program and trying to move and basically give the educators a tool to show the learners, in that case, how they can make data-driven decisions, not necessarily focusing, they are not going to be a data scientist, but they are like the star management that you mentioned. It was tourism management in that particular case. So I think there's a lot of people who can benefit from a tool like KNIME and data literacy in general, and maybe we can open that up a bit and not only talk about data science. What about data engineers, people who are focusing more on the data? I see a lot of job advertisements out there, people looking for this particular skill.
Okay, thank you. But then let's talk about how you use KNIME in your courses. So first of all, why did you choose KNIME for the course?
I chose KNIME because most of my students don't have a background in programming or statistics. So some have, but most don't. And if I would, start from scratch there, then I would lose them probably along the way on my way to teach machine learning algorithms or statistical methods. So KNIME allows me to actually show some cool examples, like I always start with the OSM map view and plot some data on there so they can see where they're all located and build a little workflow. And so that breaks sort of the barrier to follow what I teach, because it's very hands-on. It allows me to use examples, and then after showing some examples, I can easily come back to the actual method and explain that. So this is the main reason for me to choose KNIME. Plus, there's great support for educators. I can only thank Stefan for always supporting me there.
Welcome.
I did not ask the question to Stefan.
For me, the answer would be design. I love the KNIME design. I love it. I think it's great. Functionality, because it allows you to do most of the things that you will need as a marketer to actually measure, and the ecosystem, because it allows you to, if you have to do, let's say, things that relate more with statistics, very easy to integrate with R. If you need to do things that have to do more with, I don't know, machine learning, you have Python integration sometimes. So yeah, I think those three are the main things. And when I try to go back in time, and I remember that day in which I was designing my course for the first time, and I had three options. It was like SPSS, which is the traditional marketing research methods. I had R, and I had KNIME. And going very basic, the rationale was like, okay, SPSS, it's kind of too old-fashioned. I'm not gonna go with that. I want something more modern. Going with R, then I say, maybe I don't want to do this to marketing students. I mean, R is good. It's excellent for statistics, but I mean, I want them to have a more user-friendly experience. If they have to use R, okay, I'll show them with KNIME. And that's why I choose KNIME. I had those. For me, it was like the perfect fit.
Maybe I can add a little thing to that, because I actually also teach a class for research methods, and in this class I use SPSS, and I see different learning paces from my students in the analytics class and in the research lab. So I actually consider switching this to KNIME, so I'm trying to get that more into the research domain as well, and this is what we talked about yesterday as well, that KNIME is definitely a great tool for research as well.
Yeah.
So the second question was about how the students appreciate KNIME. So I understand that they have definitely a faster pace in learning. So do they appreciate about the extensiveness of the, I don't know, what do they say about the experience?
They do, especially if they had SPSS before that, because in SPSS you're very limited with what you can do, and it's not so intuitive. It's very, old-fashioned, like you said. I think that was very good fit. And yeah, even though they have some, they are a bit hesitating in the beginning to use it because it seems like a lot. But in the end, they realize that all those methods that I try to get into their heads are actually implemented in KNIME, and then they are very thankful, because a regular feedback I get is that the practical implementation in KNIME helps to actually understand the theoretical method underneath it. So yes, at the end of the class, they're very happy.
Yeah, if I could add something too, one thing that was important is open source. I think that was key. The fact that, I still remember when I was first teaching with KNIME, most of students were kind of surprised. This is for free, and it's like, it's really good, and it's like we can just download it and with no license. Yeah, it is. And the second, fully agree with you, Ina, the feedback has been always good. The last 7 years, I don't remember and the interesting things I have taught to marketing students with zero programming background. I have taught to marketing students with middle programming background. And I have taught to computer science students with high knowledge in programming. Good. In the three scenarios, it works exactly the same. The ones without any background, they like it because it's simple. The ones with middle, allows them to do many stuff. And the ones with a lot of programming background, they like it because they still could integrate with their Python, with their R, and they find it like nice design or nice, applicability. So yeah, that's a good feedback from students. It keeps me using KNIME. Yeah.
Talking about students, do you also teach to, ongoing education to kind of working people already, so not only young classic university students, and what do they say? I think it's for you,
yeah.
Francisco.
My only experience in teaching more senior people, it's actually researchers, not students. So I do many workshops for researchers, like faculty that wants to improve their skills in data analysis, or PhD students, and yeah, that's it. That's mainly. But I haven't taught in specific workshops designed for I don't know, a group from an organization that wants to upskill themselves in data science. So, and the experience with senior researchers, it's been, yeah, good so far. I mean, I've been teaching the last 4 years, 5 years, more senior people, and the feedback, it's rather positive. You know, like it hasn't been too different from what I get in bachelor programs or in master programs.
Stefan, you have experience with that. We have run guest lectures on programs for post-education.
True. So we're actually involved in a couple of certificate of advanced studies in Switzerland. That's basically courses for continuing education. And one just comes to mind because I did a lecture there. There was on big data and applied data science. Hope I'm not butchering the name too much of that course. But it was a lot of people without, well, it was a heterogeneous group, first of all with people, a lot of technical knowledge, but also people more from a managerial perspective. And what KNIME basically brings to that, and the feedback that we regularly get, is that they like that they can get their hands dirty. Like, they learn about the concepts, the algorithms, but as soon as they fire up KNIME, we basically give them a tool to go through the data, and not only what they're basically provided by the lecturer, but they go and take their own data, go dive in, do some analysis, do exploratory analysis, build models. So for them, it's really amazing to see that after a very short period of time, they can run their analysis, basically. And they didn't really think that would be possible in the first place.
So going back to the comparison, I don't know if I can say that, I'd say it, but so going back to the comparison, when they were asking me, there were some courses where they would offer one day each different tools, right? So they would call people from different companies, and then you would do a demo for the whole day. And I always asked to be placed after SAS and SPSS, because then I would shine easily without having to invest too much effort in preparing the lesson. It was always a huge success. Okay, so another question. What's the most underrated topic in data science education? Something that should be taught and usually it's ignored.
I think to me it's the adjustment of data science education to the expectation of the students or to the needs of the market rather than the expectations, maybe. So to holistically have it in the curriculums of different educational programs, ideally in every educational program, but tailored to the needs of the future role that a student is learning for. And I think it's like when I look at degree programs at other universities, it's sort of one shoe fits all, one size fits all, and this is not like that. This is not the way in the future for me. So we need more tailored education, in my view.
And you, Francisco?
For me, it's, as I said earlier, a course on the value of data science for marketing. Like I think a course concerning just value. How can we really gain marketing value, business value out of data science for marketing? Like a course specialized in that. Recently, I'm very into the topic of apps. I think that it would be nice to have in a marketing curriculum an apps design course, with KNIME. Just focus on the importance of apps, for the organization, and from a marketing standpoint, how apps can be used for, for customer service, for content creation, for segmentation, which goes more into the production side of things, right? I think most of schools nowadays are really focused on, focus on production, but not so much on deployment, right? And I feel that the deployment part, connected with apps, it's an under exploited feature, because at the end of the day, you end up with students. I know how to run deep learning for movie sets and with reviews, but so what? Like, how are you gonna implement it, put it into production? How are you gonna make it into an app that maybe more people in your team can use it? And I think that that's And that's also the selling part, right? The selling part of data science is missing, right? In marketing, we teach about sales, right? And how do you sell data science in marketing? I think that's production and apps can help on that.
Yeah, I agree. The deployment part is definitely something that could be taught more. When I do these courses or whatever activities with universities, and I explain deployment, you see the eyes, lighting because they understand what they can use the model they trained for 99.9% accuracy. Definitely. Stefan, what do you think?
I totally agree. That's, by the way, a guest lecture on deployment, I think, is the guest lecture that I delivered the most in the last 2 or 3 years, because it just tends to be left over at the end of the curriculum, and then it just drops off very often. I was about to say something controversial, and actually picking up on your point, I would say communication. Maybe not sales, but communicating the findings and being able to properly communicate with different stakeholders. And maybe it's not a hard skill, it's more a soft skill, but something that should definitely be considered more.
And I would add to that point the critical consumption of results, like the critical reception of whatever data analytics provides us with, not only in KNIME, but also in AI tools in general. So, yeah.
That's a very good one too, like fully agree, because it's like, and that's something that we are trying to do in LUIS. Particularly, we started these last 2 years with a marketing campaign of the university, but it's true. I mean, it's like we are transitioning to what's called an inquiry-based program, right? So helping students to become inquirers, to develop questions, to be more critical thinking, and probably that's true. In data science, many times on courses of data science, well, this is how you do it, this is the process, this is the result, this is how do you deploy it. But we don't train much students to question the process, question the results, question the implications. And I think that's also, I agree, an area that requires more effort.
Great. So at this point, I would like to collect some questions, either from the audience online or from the audience here. If anybody has some questions about, data literacy programs and how our experts here have implemented them. Roberto.
I have a question, both for... So first of all, thank you very much for sharing your insights. And I do have a question both for Francisco and Stefan. So you shared in the previous presentation, Francisco, that you introduced some elements of gamification to your courses, and so you organize a challenge, right? So one question for you would be, how was your experience in gamifying them? And then the follow-up question for, I guess, Stefan, would be, what does KNIME offer in terms of gamification for the universities and study curriculum?
Yeah, thank you for your question. That's and I forgot, I should have said early on in my intervention, but probably the best ever experience I have teaching was with the challenge. That we back in 2020 we organized a challenge that was called Creative Industries Challenge. With the KNIME Evangelist team, and yeah, it was incredible. I mean, the challenge was all about students using analytics in creative industries to extract insights from creative industries such as art, movies, books, content creation, influencer marketing. So all about content creation, right? And how analytics could inform these industries, which are very popular and are rather famous. And it was such a success. At the end of it was like a 6 months, 6 weeks work somehow. And most of teams were very stressed out competing. So if I could, one downside, there was too much stress because everyone really wanted to win, and they were like working too much, and some sleeping disorders out there, and complaining, but it wasn't because the work was boring, and that's many times happens when you have to study and maybe not sleep, but because it's boring. But this was really pure out of excitement and the side of winning. And yeah, so engagement. So probably one of my best experiences but if I can really, the downside of it was the stress. So it's you need to be careful on how you implement challenges, because they can also cause quite some stress to students in terms of competition. The fact that there is a first, second, and third place, and the prizes, you know, and it's not trivial, those things. You need to think that through very well. We had one very successful team that they earned an internship in KNIME, and a wonderful experience for them. But yeah, I would say that definitely I would do it again. Yeah.
So maybe I can add to that the challenge potentially is the second step, I would say, as in, you were already in the lucky situation that you had your students work on a project, right? And that's, not everyone is doing that out there. So that they basically got a kick-started on KNIME, they have been presented the tool, been onboarded, and then could work continuously for 6 weeks on the project, basically. In general, with those challenges, we also have them running for even extended periods of time if the students are not full-time students, for instance. They're maybe only part-time doing, I don't know, Fridays and Saturdays work on that. So maybe they can stretch on for multiple months or for 2 weeks. And the idea really is not to add stress, but actually to add a bit of fun and show them that, hey, there is something to win, there's something in it for you beyond just passing that lecture, basically. And what we bring to the table is not the domain knowledge, because we are, I'm an expert in one particular domain, but definitely not in marketing, for instance. That's where we rely on you and other lecturers, basically, to judge, hey, how good are the solutions, basically. But we have a lot of KNIME experts in the team, so we can actually look at that, evaluate that, and bring that to the table. And, well, basically support, like we've done with you, support other lecturers as well who are interested in running such challenges. And we basically just literally last week opened a call for student challenges for 2023. You can find the link online on the KNIME blog if you want.
Thank you. There is a question from the audience online. So you see that KNIME is very useful in your area. Do you also see researchers in other fields, like, for example, social sciences using KNIME? If so, how do they use it?
Well, I have no knowledge of anybody using it at my university in the field of social sciences. However, I see a lot of interdisciplinary projects, and there are many researchers that are around behavioral analytics, and that very well has connection to social sciences. So I wouldn't see why there won't be applications in social sciences. So I think, to me, the algorithms, the methods are universal. You can apply them to all sorts of disciplines. So, yeah.
Once they're numbers, they're numbers.
True.
Yeah, good question. I mean, Louis is a social sciences university, and I would say probably I'm one of the few professors that uses KNIME, especially in marketing. But I think there is quite some potential. I mean, imagine political science, or political communication, which is huge, right? They have so much data, right, in political communication. You have data about surveys that are regularly run about politicians. Politicians are entirely fully on social media. People is posting about political content all the time, So I think that, I think different social science disciplines, it could be an excellent fit, for teaching analytics in different disciplines. HR, human resources.
Yeah, HR.
Yesterday I was told that Paolo was working on an app, something related with CVs and the importance of using maybe data from CVs to maybe personalize a job application, something like that. It's definitely there is potential to do more.
You, Stefan, you have worked with a number of universities. Have you seen research projects done with KNIME on social sciences, for example, literature or less mathematical sciences?
Yes, definitely. There's one project that comes to mind immediately. It's actually from a lab in the States. they were basically joining unstructured data, historical texts, basically, together with geospatial information. It was around religion and temple locations, and I can't recall the details, but that's actually also a prime use case for KNIME, because they were working with geospatial data, but also with unstructured text in those particular cases to do text processing and join those together. And unfortunately, that was a question from the virtual audience. We had a poster session yesterday, and we actually had quite some researchers from the life sciences, for instance, present their research. So if you go to Google Scholar and search for KNIME, you'll actually find quite a lot of publications using KNIME.
I heard some voices from there. No questions? Thank you. Any more questions? Any other questions on the data literacy programs?
Steve.
There. Steve. The microphone.
If based on what you know now, you were starting from scratch by teaching basic data skills, data literacy, data engineering, data science, whichever bit of that spectrum, you could give yourself one single sentence worth of advice. What would it be?
A single sentence of advice. 2. Let's exaggerate.
So difficult.
I would say don't stop believing.
One sentence, I will say...
It will pay off.
Yeah. An advice for a lecturer that is going to teach data science for the first time would be probably less is more. And why? Because my experience is that everyone who teaches data science for the first time, they put too much in their CVs, and then they don't really have time to go in deep into any topic, and at the end it's just like really just too much content, so less is more. Yeah.
Okay, we are concluding on a philosophical note here.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, I have the last questions to conclude this panel. So, what is the feature of KNIME you couldn't do without? You want to start, Ina?
Probably the graphical user interface, like you don't have to program, yes, you can just drag and drop the notes, and this is probably what adds the most value to my students.
I would agree. That would be my first, so the visual interface, and it makes a difference, absolutely. And the second one is the integrations and the ecosystem. That's to me the most important one, too.
If I may add, I would say the community.
Good, yeah, true. Yeah.
And of course, the KNIME support.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Certification program, Alliance program, Evangelist. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, then now I think it cannot end better than that, so I think we're supposed to close it here. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for answering. Thank you for coming. And yeah, thank you all.